Sure. First thing is, if this is very new to you, I always want to know the commonalities of the great players to everybody else. In other words, if the commonality has to be common through all the players, otherwise, that would be something you want to communicate to all of your players that are using it. So you will always see pressure on the lead side. Now, here's the interesting thing. Again, if this is new to you, we are looking at Jim through the face on. His feet, just like I described before on the center of pressure chart, his left foot is on the left side of that chart and his right foot is on the right side. So it is the opposite as the camera sees him on the face on. I think that's very important to note. But just very common for a good player, and I think Jim told me he was about a 4 or 5 handicap. He has a touch more pressure on the lead side than the trail side. Again, opposite of how you're viewing the camera, opposite of how you're viewing Jim. So he actually has 56% on his lead side. That is very common. We say about 55 to 60%. It completely depends on the club, the terrain, environmental issue, all that stuff, what kind of shot he's looking to hit, that kind of circumstance. But touch more on the lead side. If you want to go ahead and play it, if they're going to play it, you're going to say, yep, there it is. Cool. So you're going to see the pressure at some point get into the heel. Now, I will say this, pause it right there, kind of at the top of the swing. That'd be great. Okay. I will say this and this is just a little tip actually for you, Jim. Always give the V1 pressure mat time to center. So if you saw where his starting point was on the center of pressure, you could see how it was under the crosshairs right there. So I can safely say that Jim is getting pressure into his heel. But if we get it more centered, and again, it just takes a second to auto center, then obviously you're going to be a little bit more accurate with the numbers. But the general direction of the trace and all the swings he showed me really didn't change. So it's a very ingrained pattern where he goes into his heels. Now have him go into transition, please. And it's going to go in from his heels and it's going to go out to his toe. Could you please go back to impact? Now, you probably should show how to set impact. I think that's kind of important. The moment of truth, obviously. So right there, we're going to set impact on the screen. Beautiful. Now, kind of interesting, if we step him back a little bit, so just step him back. And if you're familiar with the P system, kind of coming into the ball. So you'll see 61%. Now take him into impact from there. 61% on the lead side, pretty much into a balanced foot. You can see that actually his pressure is retreating a little bit or going back to the trail side, okay? Now this could be a plethora of things. My teaching partner is a doctor of physical therapy, so I would already have a screening on Jim if this was an in-person lesson where I would know if there's any restrictions. But again, if there's no restrictions there, what this also could be is how Jim actually times and releases the club at the bottom. So his pressure is backing up on, I believe this was an 8-iron, correct, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I, by the way, and I don't think anyone's looking at me, but I've got his on my iPad back here. So this is an 8-iron. So I would constitute that to being more of a scoring club. So when somebody shows this pressure trace where it kind of goes into the heel, comes out through the toes, backs up a little bit, and then go ahead and play him all the way to his finish, please. We're going to call that more of a fish hook. It went into the heel, came out the toe, went out to the toe, and then he eventually finished back in the heel. So we've categorized that as a fish hook trace. And because it is indeed a scoring club, I got 8-iron swings from Jim 2 days ago. And I got wedge swings from Jim a couple days ago. You're probably better off in scoring clubs with somebody showing this trace of getting them to be a little bit more linear. Driver would be a different thing altogether. So the fish hook, pressure goes out to the toes. I don't know if we have the downline view of him. Do we? Oh, yeah. Look at this. You guys are so good. Okay. So if we can actually go back to address, this is kind of fun. Okay. And again, you can see his center of pressure wasn't 100% centered, but it was a lot better this time than the other one. Can we put a little bit of a line on, here's the very technical term for this, tush plane. Can we put a line on his rear, or what we'd like to call your best side there, your best angle? Okay, yeah, straight down, perfect, awesome, awesome. So this is commonly referred to as the tush plane. I know, highly technical. So if we go in the backswing here, just kind of step them along, just real slow, right? You see his pressure initially go again towards the heel, but it's going to start moving towards its toe. So the funniest thing is a lot of people talk about like that I lose my posture in the downswing, and it's so interesting. Stop him right there. Stop him right there. This is a key point here. So this client might tell you, I lose my pressure, or I lose my posture in my downswing, right? The interesting thing that the body track would show is actually, if I'm looking at this, the overwhelming majority of the pressure is actually in his toes at this point in the swing. So this would signal when he's actually starting to lose his posture, even though he hasn't come off that yellow line yet, okay? This is one of those commonalities of great players. I've never had a great player, a PGA Tour player, so on and so forth, that didn't have some pressure in their trail heel at some point in the backswing. And at or near the top is probably a pretty good thing for Jim to work on, because now if we kind of step him down a little bit more from here, so go from transition, yeah, good. So now you start seeing the gap develop right there, right there. A couple clicks later, Jim starts coming off the yellow dot, the yellow line. So he's thinking, okay, when I transition, I lose my posture. I would tell Jim he was losing his posture in his backswing with how he was pressuring the ground. So think of it this way: when you increase the pressure in your toes, your pelvis is going to move out towards the golf ball. That's going to make your upper body move away from the golf ball. And it's happening, and you can see this with the body track, it's happening sooner than you'll actually be able to witness. All right. Again, he's going to tell you about transition and downswing. Oh, yeah, my tush comes off the plane and I lose my posture then. Again, if you would help him out by getting his pressure in his heel in his backswing, he'd have such a better chance of doing that. Please step him down a little bit further here. Okay, and again, you're seeing the same commonality. Stop right there. Go back to that 63 number, please. And again, this is a better player, and this is a very ingrained pattern. So there's a 66, 63, perfect, perfect. So we're at 193% in his toes. I want you to, can you use a magnifying glass on the V1 and just kind of magnify his feet at the bottom there? His feet are actually on the mat. As you view it live, or as you would view it on in person or on the camera. But if we were able to stop Jim at that point and just give him a little tap, he'd fall flat on his face. Okay, because all of his pressure is almost completely into his toes at this point, even though you would think he was very grounded, flat-footed, even, so on and so forth. So it's so interesting because there's been a lot of great players that actually have swung very, we call it trail ankle pronation for all the golf nerds out there, but basically very flat-footed like a Mo Norman and so on and so forth, where the foot doesn't come up, but you can still chart and see that actually Jim is on his lead side, but he is completely in his toes, which is why he's coming off that yellow line. All right, go ahead and step him down. So note that 66, take him to impact. And I always advise setting impact. So you see him back up to 51, then he got back to 56. So there's a little bit of a backup there. Okay, and then we're gonna just set impact. Perfect. So again, this was a little bit more centered, but even though Jim's feet look like they're completely on the ground, what the body track is reading is 100 and 100 amount of pressure in the toes. Okay, and if we draw a new tush line on his tush line, so maybe use a different color here. There you go. I like your style. Perfect, perfect. So what is that gap, and what is that, and what is that doing for Jim right now? Okay, there's some decisions to make here. This is obviously how Jim releases the club, and solid contact issues, the ability to create a consistent low point. All of this stuff is in play with Jim telling me, hey, I just want to be a better iron player. I do come out of my posture. I think I would benefit staying in it and rotating a little bit more. Interestingly, to note that if he's 100% in his lead toe there, he's not going to get much mobility or rotation out of the lead hip, okay? Because the pressure is not going to allow for that. Go ahead and take him all the way to his finish. So he's going to be a person that looks like he stalls out and kind of flips the club face to close it. All right. Now, I have seen players that have this release pattern, but ultimately you have to determine what the player's restrictions or limitations are and what their goals really are. This more of a flip release, there's excessive amount of desperation closing at the bottom. So if I can get his pressure into his lead side without backing up, and specifically into his lead heel, he'll actually start showing us through impact. Can we take him back to impact? Now, I won't draw anything inappropriate on here because I'm not the one drawing it, but you would be able to see both. I usually say show me both cheeks, but I'll just say both pants pockets. That eventually we need to get you to show us both pants pockets, the back pockets, through impact, which would get him, again, a little bit more forward and a little bit more open, and it would quiet down the closure of the club face through impact, which would give him a little bit more consistency in terms of club face delivery. So, and I got some drills for that. So go ahead and fast forward them all the way to the finish there. Beautiful. So you can see the club face comes out very closed and very low. That usually is an indicative or a sign of a lot of face closure through impact.